This is The Splash, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sarah.
We're coming at you from the RodMob Treehouse here in Wet and Wild, Portola Valley. It's Friday, November 30th, and this is episode 36 of The Splash, your weekly Northern California fishing podcast, powered by the RodMob Nation.
We took last week off the podcast for Thanksgiving, and it's great to be back. Hope all of you had a fantastic holiday. We sure enjoyed staying up to date on all your reports and catches all week on our Facebook page and Twitter feed.
Yep, I loved checking in to see what the RodMob had been posting.
Well, we're getting quite the storm this week with a ton of rain, but we've still got all the latest fishing reports for you.
But before we dive into the latest action, let's hear the news. So Sarah, what do you got?
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
Well, in the news this week, in the big fish category, 2 British anglers made the headlines with a 1,000-pound bluefin tuna they caught off the coast of Nova Scotia. It took 2 hours of wrestling with the beast before angler Mark Towers was able to start pulling it to the surface. Then, they lassoed the fish with a rope and towed it the 4 miles back to the dock because it was too big to be hauled onto the boat. The giant tuna was shipped to Japan, where it's expected to sell for about $32,000 and be turned into about 20,000 pieces of sushi. That's a lot of tuna rolls.
I've spent that much at one sushi sitting, and it was a lot less than 20,000 pieces.
Somebody commented on our Facebook page, that could feed all of Japan. In Florida, 13-year-old angler Jake Hobbs now has a fishing story to last the rest of his life. Jake was ballooning a live blue runner off the fishing pier at Deerfield Beach, and instead of the big king mac he thought he had on the line, it turned out he had a 70-pound sailfish. Crowds gathered around to watch Jake fight the fish while his little brother ran around lifting up other anglers' rods so Jake could go under them until he finally pulled the fish onto the beach after 45 minutes.
Wow, nice job.
A record was set in the San Francisco Bay Area on Tuesday. Gary Howard of Livermore caught a 6-foot sturgeon at Lake Del Valle, the biggest fish ever caught in history at a Bay Area lake. Gary was fishing south of Tarantula Cove using anchovies when he hooked the big fish. A 2-hour fight ensued before Gary landed the giant, then released it back into the lake.
Wow, I could never imagine a fish like that in Lake Del Valle. I'm going to think twice before I go swimming there again.
No kidding.
Stay on top of the latest fishing action. Subscribe to RodMob Podcasts on iTunes. It's free, and you'll always get the latest episodes.
And in the something fishy category, Greenpeace uncovered a large-scale illegal fish transfer operation on the Pacific Ocean between a ship from Cambodia, 1 from the Philippines, and 2 from Indonesia. Because none of the boats are on the official record of vessels authorized to operate in the area, they're not allowed to fish or transfer fish at sea there. Most of the fish in the ship's holds were skipjack tuna and yellowfin, probably destined for sale in canned tuna. Because of a major loophole in the legislation for international waters, the boats evaded arrest, but Greenpeace is working with Pacific governments in the area to take legal action.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do?
5 new species of a fish called a darter, a small freshwater fish found mainly in the United States, were discovered in river systems in Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. The most notable thing about these fish, it seems, is their new names. The newly discovered species were named after U.S. leaders who have worked to promote conservation and environmental protection. So now, Theodore Roosevelt, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and Barack Obama all have the distinction of having a fish named after them.
Doesn't Frank Zappa have a jellyfish named after him?
Yeah, actually, I think Frank Zappa has a number of species named after him. He was pretty popular. But George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld all have a species of slime mold beetle named after them. And I read that this is President Obama's second namesake. He also has a lichen named after him.
There's going to be like the Gene Simmons killer whale.
We can only hope.
The Paul Stanley dolphin. Ozzy Osbourne crab.
As long as you're not having a dung beetle named after you, I think you're okay. Well, some Northern California news. 19 Marine Protected Areas, or MPAs, will go into effect on the North Coast on December 19th, completing the statewide network of MPAs in California coastal regions. The North Coast MPA regulations and boundaries were adopted by the California Fish and Game Commission back in June, and they create protected areas between the California-Oregon border and Alder Creek, near Point Arena in Mendocino County. There are 5 pre-existing MPAs on the North Coast, 4 will stay in the network, and 1 will be removed. You can find a complete list of all the marine protected areas as well as regulation details and maps on the DFG's website, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well. Cal Trout was awarded a $650,000 grant by the California Natural Resources Agency to restore the fishery at Hat Creek. They developed a preliminary recovery plan for Hat Creek's native rainbow trout and announced the funding this week, saying that restoration work will begin next year. California Trout's Executive Director Jeff Thompson said, "Hat Creek is truly at the heart of our mission to protect and restore wild trout in their waters. We have brought wild trout populations back from dire straits in this creek before, and we can do it again." And a record number of salmon have returned to Sonoma County rivers and streams. Here's a clip from ABC 7 News.
In Sonoma County, it's not shark fin, but salmon that are drawing all the attention thanks to a record number of fish returning to local rivers and streams. As ABC 7 News reporter Wayne Friedman learned today, one of the best places to watch them is a winery.
In the Dry Creek Valley of Sonoma County, they come for the wine. And as Sal Carreri of Truett-Hurst Vineyards knows all too well, they stay for the fish. There are big ones in Dry Creek, which runs through the property.
In excess of 6,300 fish.
You've counted that many fish?
Yes.
That's Dr. Greg Horton of the Sonoma County Water Agency, which has spent considerable time and money to restore the salmon runs. They know this number because they have video and have counted the fish moving upstream. The agency has focused mostly on coho and steelhead, but seeing the Chinook in such record numbers bodes well.
Just an indicator of how good conditions are.
This fish, they say, is days away from laying eggs on the sandy bottom and continuing the life cycle.
I was surprised at how big it was, yeah. And I was surprised that it wasn't as silver.
This is pretty amazing, actually.
It is one experience to order some Pinot and enjoy salmon as a meal. In the Dry Creek Valley this week, they're ordering the Pinot and watching. From Sonoma County, Wayne Friedman, ABC 7 News.
Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here are the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Starting with saltwater, Mother Nature kept many North Coast boats in the barn this week, but when they did get out, they returned with limits of crab and assorted rockfish. Outside the gate, boats got their limits of both crab and rockies off the Marin coast and out at the Farallon Islands. The ling counts have been up lately. On Monday, the New Huck Finn scored 22 limits of rockfish and crab plus 14 lings. The crab haul slowed a bit off the Pacifica Pier with the presence of nearby commercial crab fishermen. And there's a small craft advisory in effect through Sunday morning for the San Francisco Bay Area. In Half Moon Bay, when the conditions allowed, skippers continue to find crab, rockfish, lings, and Humboldt squid. Our landlocked friends got their crab on one way or another, fishing from the jetties or just buying them off boats and mongers in the marina. Some skippers are reporting that the crab fishing has slowed a bit, and they're having to work a little bit harder to return with limits.
For an update on the Santa Cruz area, here's Cory at Bayside Marine.
Basically, rock cod and ling cod are still going strong. Crabbing's still going real well for most everyone. Lots of limits and good-sized crab. A couple of halibut here and there keeps coming in, random. And I don't have any sea bass stories lately. The Humboldt squid were out there, but the weather's been really crappy this last today and yesterday, so I don't have any recent stories. Few caught, not wide open. The perch will probably get going on here. I don't have any stories, but with the storms, and it makes the holes that they like to sit in. So
Thanks again, Cory.
All right, you have a great day.
Bye.
You can reach Bayside Marine at 831-475-2173 or online at baysidemarinesc.com. Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching out of Monterey continues to treat their customers with near limits of rock cod and dungees. And Monday, they got into 60 Humboldt squid. The rough weather on Wednesday and Thursday kept the boats at the dock. No fishing today either, and a small craft advisory was in effect today. Inside the bay, the better action seemed to be in the north this week. The Petaluma and Napa rivers are still producing stripers and sturgeon. Halibut are active off Red Rock. In the South Bay, anglers got into plenty of leopard sharks and rays, and some shaker sturgeon were released near the Dumbarton. All the rain we're getting is expected to heat up the sturgeon action. Keith Frazier over at Loch Lomond Bait Shop says that for sturgeon anglers, this rain is just what the doctor ordered.
Strong reports are coming in throughout the Delta. Some sturgeon hotspots have been Honker Bay, Cashaloo, and Pittsburgh. Even anglers off the Martinez and Antioch Piers nailed some keepers. And the Delta continues to be striper central. Both trollers and bait anglers are finding limits from Sassoon to Rio Vista and Collinsville. This week we saw some monster sturgeon posted on our Facebook page by John Politis and Rusty Hamilton. And we got a report on the RodMob hotline this week from Delta trolling legend Clyde Wands. Here's what Clive had to share.
This is Clyde Wands, just a quick report from Monday. Fished Montezuma for a few fish, nothing very big, 6.5, 7 pounds. But it was a tough day, and I spent most of the day in there because outside, all the places I wanted to go with this big tide and no movement on the water, there was so much hyacinths, Broad Slough, Collinsville, around that area, impossible to troll it. But I think this rain will push a lot of that out, get a little movement in the water and some water coming downstream. Maybe we'll get rid of some of that. There are a lot of fish in the area. It was just a tough troll on Monday. Talk to you later. Bye.
We want to hear from you. Got a fishing report, a tip, a review, a comment on the show? Drop us a message on the RodMob hotline. Then listen for it on an upcoming episode. 662-RODMOB-5.
Now let's look at the lakes. Western Outdoor News has Lake Shasta as a best bet. They say that now the lake has turned, the bass fishing has been good, and recommend starting with topwater and spinners and then going deeper. If you're doing rainy day fishing, Tony at Phil's Prop recommends an A-rig or Osprey swim baits. Trout are shallower in the lake right now. Shasta 24/7 reports rainbows and browns are feasting on shad at about 20 to 40 feet, especially in the Sacramento and McLeod arms of the lake. Trout are still on the bite at Eagle Lake as they fill up their little trout tummies for the winter. Tight Lines Guide Service made a trip out to Eagle Lake with 3 boats last weekend. Rick reports, "We all launched at 6:30 and worked our way towards Wildcat Point in heavy fog that was sitting on the lake and stayed until noon. The bite started off a little slow, but soon picked up. The hot ticket for all 3 boats was the Orange Arctic Fox Trolling Fly and an Orange Seps Grub and Procure Trophy Trout Scent. We ended the day with limits for all 18 clients and also threw a few small ones back throughout the day. The average size was around 2.5 pounds with a handful going over 3 pounds. If you're thinking of heading out to Eagle Lake, you'll want to do it soon. There's only 1 month left before Eagle Lake closes." And for an update on the action at Clear Lake, we spoke with Troy at Clear Lake Outdoors.
Yeah, we're really seeing things pick up here at the lake. This, latest couple storms that went through has got them biting pretty good. We've guys are throwing some of the bigger swim baits, Huddleston's 6 and 7 inch top hook talons, and been some really nice fish caught. The lipless crankbite's been, hit and miss on and off. It's starting to pick up again pretty good now. A lot of people are catching some good fish on it. There's a great live jumbo minnow bite right now for the recreational fishermen that are going out. These guys are just whacking them. So that bite's really hot right now as well. But as far on the artificial scene, I would say swim baits are the number one thing catching the bigger fish, followed by the LV 500. And there's a decent jig bite out there, and then of course some guys are finesse fishing, drop shot worms and 5 and 6 inch Cinco, still catching some fish under the docks on those. So there's still a pretty wide variety of things they're hitting.
You can reach Clear Lake Outdoors at 707-262-5852 or online at clearlakeoutdoors.com.
Anglers dodging the rain at Lake Berryessa found some nice 2 to 3 pound trout trolling crawlers and minnow patterns off Skiers Cove. Fishing at Lake Orville has just been getting better and better. In our last show, we had reports from guide Ron Gandolfi that 50 to 60 fish days were possible. And this week, we heard the lake produced 65 fish in 4 hours for his last trip. Western Outdoor News has the jig, Senko, and drop shot bites as excellent from the shore down to 30 feet deep in the West Branch and North Fork. At Collins Lake, the rain is raising the level of the lake and big trout are being caught daily. Some recent catches weighed in at 5, 6, and 7 pounds, and a 10-pound catfish was reported. In the East Bay area, Lafayette Reservoir got a DFG trout plant this week, and both catfish and trout are on the bite. For trout, try power bait and crawlers, and for catfish, cast out some chicken liver. Los Vaqueros also got a trout plant this week. NorCal Fishing News reports good but not great fishing, but Los Vaqueros won't muddy up, so that's a plus. Shorelines will be muddy, but if you rent a boat, that problem is solved. Trollers are getting 18 to 21-inch striped bass.
The staff at Lake Del Valle reports the lake is turning over, so the water clarity is not good, but the fishing is. As we mentioned in the headlines, the big news at Del Valle this week was the 72-inch, 100-pound sturgeon caught by Gary Howard of Livermore. The previous sturgeon record for Del Valle was in the mid-20-pound range. The trout bite's been picking up this week. They're hitting on power bait, Castmasters, rooster tails, and egg worm combos. Stripers are also starting to turn on. Try rainbow trout swim bait and anchovies. Black bass and smallmouth bass are still productive. The best lures have been rattle traps and panther martins. Bass aren't going for surface lures anymore. And catfish are still biting on mackerel, sardines, and anchovies. At Lake Chabot, the trout action keeps improving every day. The staff reports that within the past week, 4 whoppers have been caught by trolling with topwater lures. One of those whoppers was a 10-pounder caught by Mike Rogers over in the Half Moon Bay area on a Rapala. A ton, literally, of trout have been planted in the past 2 weeks at Shadow Cliffs. The water at Shadow Cliffs stays fairly clear, so it might be a good spot during this rain. And at the San Luis Reservoir, NorCal Fishing News says that basalt and trash racks are the best spots to drift live jumbo minnows, pileworms, or bloodworms for stripers to 10 pounds.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/therodmob.
And in the Motherlode area, at New Melones, the DFG is doing weekly plants of rainbow trout. Trolling's been slow, but bank fishing has been picking up as fish are feeding on the surface near the shoreline in the early morning. On these cloudy and rainy days, Glory Hole Sports recommends using lures with bold colors like fire tiger, orange, and chartreuse. This week, Headwaters Kayak Fishing Team helped out with releasing 300 one-pound trout into pens as part of a program by Kokanee Power working with the DFG to grow trout in cages to about 5 pounds before releasing them into the wild. The Headwaters team also spent some time fishing the lake and posted some great shots of some beautiful rainbows. Adam Coons caught and released a very nice-looking 21-inch bow. The bass fishing at New Melones is good with large schools of spotted bass chasing bait balls. Try using a spoon in the major creek channels and stick with a shad pattern in black and silver or blue and silver. There's also been a good jig bite lately. This is the time of year to catch big cats at New Melones as catfish move shallower and feed on cloudy and rainy days. Your best bets for bait are live minnows, frozen shad, mackerel, or anchovies. And New Melones got the last brown trout plant for the state of California this week. Plantings are being discontinued due to a recent lawsuit against the DFG over being unable to sterilize brown trout. Since brown trout won't be planted at the lake in the future, please be sure to practice catch and release. Glory Hole Sports has also ceased recognizing brown trout in their Big Fish of the Week contest.
Trout anglers at Lake Amador have been doing well. They had double-digit days this week with most fish in the 3-pound range. Night fishing near the boathouse has been good for crappie. Some nice trout are being caught at Lake Camanche. On Sunday, Jordan Bozeman hooked a whopper weighing in at 9.8 pounds. And we spoke with Shelly Hudson this week for an update on the fishing and upcoming trout plants.
Trout fishing's going right now. We had a gentleman from here at Camanche catch a 9.8-pound trout. He caught it upriver. There were a bunch of bass fishermen and caught onto the trout. It was a broken back lure is what he was with. They caught that roughly, they said, 7 feet down. We had a couple other ones being caught. They're trolling in East Cove, as other people know as Houseboat Cove, right now. And again, the turnover has happened, so they're fishing roughly anywhere from 7 to about 14 feet deep. And that's it for the trout that we've had on reports. The dam is still going, you know. Everybody fishes there. That's a known spot around the Big Hat Island and Small Hat Island. A lot of trolling back that way.
How about, have you guys continued to been planting at the lake?
We have been planting. We're on a weekly plant right now. We finally got on schedule. It's going to be a weekly. We don't have it set yet if it's going to be on a Monday or Wednesday. They have been swapping back and forth with that. We're going to be planting every week South Shore Pond 600 pounds, and then every other week we'll plant 600 pounds to each launch. So we just planted 600 to north launch, so 600 to south launch is going to come up next.
Cool. Then how about those little tag fish? Are they still out there?
Tagged fish are still in. I might have lost count of the people. I want to say we've had probably 11 of them been pulled out. So people are still catching them. And it's funny because they're catching them near shore than they are out in the open water. Where we planted them was out in the open water, but they have made their way towards shore.
All right, they're getting around.
Yeah. We also just had another plant, from Fish and Game. Department of Fish and Game came and planted 1,500 pounds of trout.
Great.
They're fingerling trouts.
And weather's real tough today?
Yeah, this weather right now. We have some wind out here. No boats are allowed on the water with our wind. We're looking roughly between 45 miles per hour.
Wow.
But with this good rain, it'll give us a little bit more water in this lake, which we need to come back up a little bit more. So that'll be the nice thing to come up with this rain we get for a week out here.
Very cool. Thanks again, Shelly, for the time.
Thanks, Scott, very much.
For more info on Lake Camanche, check out facebook.com Lake Camanche. Lake Don Pedro got 4,000 pounds of catchable rainbow trout planted at the Moccasin Point launch ramp today. The lake staff says if you don't mind getting wet and want to avoid the holiday shopping crowds, the fishing should be good this weekend.
In the Sierras, plenty of nice macks are still being caught at Lake Tahoe. Trollers have been finding fish to 12 pounds, trolling in 100 to 200 feet of water. Donner Lake has been a ghost town lately, but it's one of the best lakes in the area for hooking a Mackinaw or trout right now. Lake Stampede is also fishing well. When the weather is right, trollers are getting both bows and macks.
Pyramid Lake has been kicking out some huge cutthroats lately. We've heard multiple reports of 20-plus pounders being landed. And in the last 2 days, there's been at least 2 14-pounders. One of them was a 31-incher caught on Wednesday by Cory Caskey. Fly anglers are liking the drop-offs near the nets, cattle guard, and popcorn areas, and trollers are seeing 30 fish plus days working the south end of the lake.
Keep us posted. Share your catch, tips, gear reviews, and more on our Facebook page. Facebook.com/RodMob.
On the rivers, forecasts called for up to 14 inches of rain for the North Coast, and Kenny Priest reports there won't be many opportunities for fishing until early next week due to blown-out rivers. But once they drop, get ready for steelhead. And it's not over for salmon yet. A 46-pounder was caught last Friday on the Smith River by Miles Dart of Eureka. On the Klamath, steelhead fishing has been good. Many 2 to 5 pounders are being caught, and even an occasional Chinook, too. We saw a report from guide Chris Parsons on the Trinity River today. Before the storms, the Trinity was fishing great. And today, Chris says, heavy rains caused the river to blow out yesterday, although conditions up in Lewiston remained good until late afternoon. As I write, the river is dropping and obtaining that perfect color. The transition is happening. The rain falls hard, then backs off. She should hold unless the skies decide to unleash tonight. Fishing should be great right now through Sunday. The lower sections below Junction City will be high, but the creeks are coming down, and that is about as perfect of a scenario as you could ask for. These are the conditions we all hope for. We did great yesterday, but only for about 2 hours. Then the river came up too fast, and it was over.
Fly anglers on the Sac in the Redding area are nailing the bows. We're seeing reports of double-digit catch days and decent steelhead fishing, too. Egg patterns are the top offering, and there's some big salmon hookups around Red Bluff. They're big and bright and chasing flatfish lures. We also saw some reports of big salmon caught in the Anderson area, and anglers are hooking some nice late-season salmon in Sacramento, in areas like Miller Park, Minnow Hole, and the Yacht Club on spinners. On the American, more steelhead are showing up. Fly anglers are having success nymphing with an indicator, and traditional folks are getting them chucking Castmasters or drifting roe. On the Feather, decent steelhead action continues. With the close of the salmon season, the river is less crowded.
Trout fishing was very good again last week on the Yuba River. Western Outdoor News says anglers can come in from the Highway 20 bridge and fish downstream, or access the river from downstream via Hallwood and Hammond-Smartsville Road. RodMobber Charles Knott reported in at the end of the day today and says it was raining most of the day in Marysville. The Yuba River is up 7 feet, still coming up and unfishable. The Feather River is up about 5 to 6 feet and unfishable as well. It'll be 5 to 6 days after the rain stops for them to return to normal. The winter bite on the Truckee is slowed a bit, and today guide Matt Herron posted that the river is blown out from town up to Squaw. But earlier in the week, we did see some nice catches posted lately from Gilligan's Guide Service.
Some year-round fishing continues in the eastern Sierras. Kent Sporting Goods reports that the East Walker is running at typical winter flows at about 23 CFS and probably will be around that for the duration. The pressure has been very light the last few weeks and the fishing has been pretty good. Some anglers have been reporting days with as many as 30 fish or so being landed. Small midge patterns and small streamers have been producing the best lately, which is also typical for this time of year. There are times when dry flies like blue wing olives, blue duns, and para-adams will work well this time of year as well. Keep your eyes open for rises while you're down there. Hot Creek is open all year and fishing well. And on the Upper Owens River, Sierra Drifters Guide Service says snowbows are coming. Before the storm that hit in the middle of the week, the flows had dropped significantly from their high of 160 CFS down to a near perfect 85 CFS. And water clarity was excellent. Tom says the bigs are on the prowl. Nymphing the deep slots and pools with flashback PTs and assassins have proven to be deadly as of late. The Upper Owens is open year-round above the bridge at Benton Crossing with zero-limit artificial lures or flies only.
Hey, RodMobbers, help support the show. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a review.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the week.
This week, our podcast album artwork comes from Rusty Hamilton. Rusty posted a picture of a monster 78-inch, nearly 200-pound sturgeon that he caught and released last weekend.
All right, Hamilton.
Thanks, Rusty, for the report and for posting this week's catch
and release
of the week.
And now for our poll question. Last week we asked, how old were you when you started fishing?
Well, most of you started out pretty young. 74% of you said 6 or younger. 17% said 7 to 12 years old. 3% were 13 to 18 years old when they started fishing, and 6% said 19 years old or older. We got some comments from a few folks, too. Rodney Zazulka said he started fishing at around 5 or 6 with a cane pole at his grandma's farm fishing for sunfish and bullhead. Rodney says, I remember my dad teaching me how to swing the bobber and worm straight out from shore almost 50 years ago near Davie, Nebraska. Anthony Hammer Buddha told us he caught his first trout when he was 8. And Chris Bailey said, at age 3, I caught my first bass at Harris Creek, San Antonio Lake, California. Stick pole with worm. I will never forget it. Thanks, Dad, for a lifetime of fun fishing.
Okay, now for this week's poll question.
So 2013 California fishing licenses are now available, and we want to know, when do you pull the trigger on purchasing your license? Are you proactive and buy one at the beginning of the year? Or do you wait until you're going to go out for the first time that year? Or maybe you have one of those lifetime licenses. Well, the mob wants to know. We'll post the poll question on our website, so head on over to rodmob.com to cast your vote.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
On Wednesday, December 5th, the Headwaters in Lodi presents another free seminar on fishing from your kayak. This time, they'll be focusing on stripers to get you ready for the Port of Sac tournament. Jim Meyer will go over kayak rigging for striper, tackle and bait selection, regulations, and as always, how to fight and land the fish from your kayak. For more info, call the Headwaters shop at 209-224-8367, or you can email headwaterskayak@gmail.com. On December 6th, Rick Kennedy from Tight Lines Guide Service will be doing a seminar on landlocked salmon tactics at the Fisherman's Warehouse in Sacramento. The seminar is free and starts at 6 p.m. December 8th is the 18th annual Calusa Crab Cipino Feed Salmon Barging and Restoration Dinner at the Calusa Fairgrounds. Cocktails will begin at 5 and dinner will begin at 7. And December 9th is the 2012 Port of Sac Stripers Kayak Fishing Tournament at the Barge Canal Recreational Access in the city of West Sacramento. December 14th through the 16th, Pittsburgh Marina and Dockside Bait and Tackle will hold a sturgeon and striped bass derby. Entry fee is $35 and includes lunch. All proceeds go to prizes. Call 925-252-0151 for more info. On December 16th, salmon fishing closes on the Sacramento, Feather, and American rivers. And finally, Trout Unlimited's North Bay chapter is looking for volunteers for Trout in the Classroom, a growing program which helps teachers and students learn about trout and salmon. Volunteers are needed for a few hours a week between December and March. For more on the program and how to volunteer, go to www.nbtu.org. For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com.
Well, that's it for this show. Thanks for another great week of reports.
And remember, subscribe to us on iTunes to get the latest episodes right when we post them. You can also find the RodMob on Stitcher Radio, a free app you can download to your Apple or Android phone or tablet, and you can add us to your favorites on Stitcher.
We got sweet RodMob t-shirts and decals available in our new online store at rodmob.com/gear. Every purchase goes to helping support the show.
And remember, if you post or send in a report, we'll send you a free weather-resistant decal so you can help rep the mob on your car, truck, or boat. And if you've got feedback or suggestions for the show, just let us know. We had a great suggestion from a listener a couple of weeks ago asking for more detailed show notes, and you can find those now on our website on the Rodcasts page. Got other ideas or requests? We'd love to hear them. We want to bring you the best show we can. So just shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Stay safe and dry out there. And until next time, keep us posted.
RodMob.